Hey guys, Kiwi here. In this video, I'll be breaking down and analyzing the Season 8 premiere of The Walking Dead as I look at all the moments inspired by the comic book source material. The show seems to be giving more parallels to the comics than ever before now with Negan in the show, as All Out War was widely considered to be the best story arc from the comics ever. Oh, and apologies if I sound a bit odd in this video, but I'm currently under the weather with a bit of a head cold. With that being said, warning is spoilers for everything in the show up to episode 801, along with issues 115 and 116 of the comics, and let's jump right into this. Now, the thing about creating the Walking Dead TV show is that they get to adapt everything from the comics in their own way. Sometimes a scene or piece of dialogue from the comics are left exactly the same, while other times they are remixed in different ways. Robert Kirkman has stated previously that he really enjoys this aspect of the show's creation because he's given the possibility to change the decisions that he may have regretted making in the comics originally. Whether it's a changed sentence, a different setting, or a different character talking altogether, the show creators really try to still respect the original source material, along with improving it when necessary to fit the show properly. This can depend on many things, such as what characters are alive at what times. Both universes have killed off characters at different times, so sometimes one character will take over a trait from another. A good example of this would be the character traits split up from Andrea, as she is still actually alive at this point in the comics. She lives at Alexandria, she's the badass sniper of the group, and is also in a relationship with Rick. Due to Andrea not being alive anymore in the show, they carried these traits over onto characters such as Sasha or Michonne. So anyways, with anticipation of Negan's arrival along with the Saviors ever since Season 6, fans have been awaiting to see these iconic moments truly come to life on the big screen. And since I always love pointing them out so much, I figured it'd be a fun idea to create a video on each episode discussing all of it. So the first moment I wanted to discuss was Rick's initial speech where he gives a few words to his men before they roll out to attack the sanctuary. In the comics, it was a single image that took up 2 pages as Rick explains that all people willing to come along should, and that the rest should be prepared to defend the place if it comes down to it. In the show, they upgraded this speech to the max and used it as a main commercial selling point for the Season 8 premiere. If I had a nickel for every time I've heard Rick say, "We've already won," or Maggie say, "The world is ours," am I right?
The world is ours.
The future is ours. The world is ours.
We've already won.
The future is ours. The world is ours.
We've already won.
And speaking of which, one way that they upgraded this speech as well was by adding Maggie and Ezekiel alongside him in general, which only makes sense considering they're the other 2 leaders. Now, the second moment that I wanted to discuss happens shortly after this while Rick is leaving. Now, as I've mentioned, in the comics, Andrea is dating Rick instead of Michonne, which also means that she acted as a mother figure to Carl as well. Considering a ton of family-related Andrea scenes have been carried over to Michonne in the past, it's fitting to include this as well. What I mean is the whole "this is your show" line that Michonne gave Carl when they're discussing the fact that they may have to defend Alexandria. It's the exact same line that Andrea gave him in the comics, and it serves the same purpose. This is a motivation tool for Carl, as the idea of him leading the defense of their home implies quite a lot of important responsibility, and Carl definitely appreciates it, although he tries brushing it off.
I know you wanted to go with them. I did too.
Everything hurts. But I'll help you defend this place.
Help me?
Oh yeah. This is your show. Okay. We'll see.
Moving on, another key factor in the beginning of All Out War is the horde that ends up surrounding the sanctuary. Now, while in the comics they simply shot out all the windows in the sanctuary to draw any nearby zombies, the show also created this entire elaborate plan to explain where the horde came from, and they've set this up ever since Season 7, Episode 9. Now, I've explained this before, but the horde that they directed towards the sanctuary is widely believed to be the same horde from the highway in the episode that they were scavenging that dynamite. They blocked off the horde in case they'd ever need it, and that's exactly where we see Morgan, Daryl, Tara, and Carol leading it from the beginning of the episode. I love how they respected the original source material along with adding in this whole new explanation. So the next moment I wanted to finally bring up was the arrival at the sanctuary. Rick shows up with the united forces of the Hilltop, the Kingdom, and Alexandria as they announce their arrival with gunshots just like in the comics. Now, although the original comic image of all of our main characters standing there looks epic, the show made it a bit more realistic by having Rick and the gang hide behind those incredible man-made walls attached to all of their vehicles. And as far as Negan's big dick contest goes, this was also dialogue taken from the comics. It was a single panel on a page that delivered quite the chuckle, but then the way that JDM performed it during the episode was just so smooth and natural. Negan ties it into the idea of not wanting to throw away the lives of his men, trying to once again intimidate and manipulate Rick and his people.
I care about my people. I don't want to just march them into the line of fire because I want to play my dick is bigger than yours. It is. We both know it. But I'm also comfortable enough to accept the fact if it wasn't. I'm certainly not gonna let my people die over that shit, like you're about to.
Now, another difference between the two versions is that Negan actually has all of his lieutenants walk out alongside him, instead of just him walking out alone like in the comics. Rick uses this to his advantage as he proposes that they will all be safe if they stand down right then and there. So, just like the comics, Negan decides that he has a better idea than surrendering, as he brings out Gregory to call down the Hilltop soldiers.
The Hilltop stands with Negan and the Saviors. Any resident of the Hilltop who takes up arms, they will no longer be welcome in the colony.
And?
Their families will be thrown out and will be left to fend for themselves.
And?
Go home now, or you won't have a home to go back to.
Now in the comics, they just had Jesus tell Rick that all he has are a bunch of books at the Hilltop, but in the show he tells this to Maggie. And speaking of which, since Maggie is actually there and also an important face of the rebellion, her leadership completely negated Gregory's actions here. Now in the comics, around 8 men from the Hilltop did end up walking away, but Negan still seemed disappointed, and so he kicked Gregory off the platform that they were standing on. On the show, however, not only did they include this amazing Gregory moment, but they also improved on it by having it complement Maggie's leadership simultaneously.
You do what you need to do.
All I have at the Hilltop are a bunch of books and an old lobster bit.
You heard the man?
Doesn't look like anyone's going, does it?
Hilltop stands with...
The Hilltop stands with Maggie!
Another aspect of this that was improved for the show was the fact that Simon was the one to push Gregory down the stairs instead of Negan, and I really enjoy this addition. Thinking back to Season 7, Simon had quite the passive-aggressive connection with Gregory, as Gregory was always trying so hard to impress him. Simon isn't from the comics and is a character original to the show, simply because the show creators loved the actor Stephen Ogg so much that they wanted to give him his own character, just like Norman Reedus, who plays Daryl. With that being said, they are clear examples of original show decisions that were definitely the right choice to make. Speaking of which, another show decision that I'm really glad that they made was switching up the entire Holly situation. Now, for those of you completely unaware of the character Holly from the comics, I recommend that you go check out my previous Season 7 video discussing her. It's a bit outdated as it was created before Sasha's death on the show, but it compared the two characters as most of Holly's character traits were given to Sasha instead, such as being the woman that Abraham ends up leaving Rosita for. Now, during All Out War in the comics, Holly ends up getting captured due to smashing a vehicle through the gates of the sanctuary in order to let the mega herd in. Now, once Holly gets captured, she ends up almost getting raped just like Sasha did, but they remixed the story on the show to have Sasha get captured at the end of Season 7 instead. Also, they didn't want to use Holly's death on the show because it's already been technically used twice. Not only was Sasha's death similar, but they literally used the same death as Holly from the comics with a character during Season 2 of Fear the Walking Dead. So with all of Holly's character traits and moments used up except for her being the one to knock down the sanctuary fence, how did they end up replacing her position? They gave the RV an iron mask and blew it the hell up. This was an amazing way to end off their initial attack, and I just love how it answered all the questions that I had brewing about this whole Holly situation. Oh, and we sort of end up having someone getting kidnapped, Father Gabriel, although it is under completely different circumstances and the outcome will be completely different as well. And speaking of Father Gabriel's fate at the end of the episode, I'd like to discuss the brief conversation that he has with Negan. This shitting pants speech that Negan gives him is straight out of the comics as well, except the circumstances are slightly different. In the comics, Negan said this to Dwight, not Father Gabriel. Furthermore, he said this to Dwight as soon as the zombies started surrounding the sanctuary. Now with that being said, I enjoy how they tied this into Father Gabriel being stranded and left behind, although in hindsight, I wish that I wasn't spoiled this scene in the San Diego Comic-Con trailer this summer. Now yes, it was a great moment to get the fans hyped without too much spoilers, so I understand why they showed it, but it still would have been nice to have that moment saved for when the premiere aired. And finally, the last moment I wanted to discuss this episode was Old Man Rick. Now, I'll avoid any major spoilers involving All Out War, so don't worry, but this is actually Rick after the war is finished. Although the show seems to be teasing the idea that it's just a dream sequence imagined by Red-Eye Rick, it's still very similar to Rick's introduction in the New Beginning in the actual comic book. He wakes up in his bed, is greeted by his lover and his child, and then walks outside to reveal that the community has evolved during the time skip. Now, although a lot of it seems the same, there are a few major differences, the biggest being Judith all grown up. Well, not fully, but according to IMDb, she's 6 years old in this scene. That shit blew my goddamn mind. Judith died a long time ago in the comics, so we've never seen her this old before. Not only was she shown greeting Rick, but she's also the one to actually lead Rick out through his front door and into the New Beginning. When I imagined the rest of the scene panning out, I imagined it happening pretty much the way it did, but the whole Judith thing just caught me off guard, and I really do hope that she stays alive for years to come, as I really do want to see the next generation eventually grow up on the show. I'd appreciate a like on the video if you've enjoyed anything I've said today, or even subscribe for more Walking Dead content in the near future. If you'd like to take that extra step in helping support my videos, check out my Patreon, where there's a bunch of different rewards involving the channel, such as a chance to directly influence the videos being produced. It isn't necessary by any means, but it can really help in the long run. But as always, I thank you all so much for watching, apologies for me being sick, and until next time, I'll talk to you guys later. Peace out.